All right, so Marcus, there is a running joke in this building that everybody does WCBI twice.
Okay.
So this is your second time around.
It is,
So
yeah.
tell us about coming back to where it all started.
Excited to come back to where it all started because, again, this is where it all started. I mean, I would not have the career in television had it not been for WCBI giving me a chance back when I was a senior in high school to come here and intern and then eventually work as a production assistant and work my way up to the weekend sports anchor before I left. And when I left, I never thought that I would be back. But, as they say, life comes full circle sometimes, and couldn't be more happy to be right back here at home.
You have an interesting story about really getting here, like getting your foot in the door actually started in the grocery store.
It did. It did. So the first time I met Karen Roberts, who was an anchor here when I first started, she came to my classroom at Columbus High School. Her son was in my public speaking class. And so she came and she talked, and that really made me think, okay, maybe the TV station is where I want to go because I really wanted to work in film. And then I was working at Kroger at the same time, and so I didn't talk to her that day. A few weeks later, she comes into Kroger, and I'm like, okay, there's Karen. I need to go up there and talk to her.
While you're bagging the groceries.
While I'm bagging the groceries, yeah. And I got so nervous, and I couldn't do it. And she left, and I just sat there, and I was like, okay, if you ever get another opportunity to meet a WCBI person, you just got to go up to them. And 10 minutes later, Chris Latimer walks in.
Wow, who was sports
Yes,
director
he was
at that
sports
time.
director at the time. And Chris walks in and he walks out and I'm bagging somebody's grocery and I literally
These eggs gotta wait, lady.
Yeah, I literally stop and I run out to the parking lot to where he is and I introduce myself to him. He gives me a business card. I call about 5 or 6 times and then.
So what do you say to Chris Latimer, the guy that you watch every night doing sports, in the middle of the Kroger parking lot?
I just ran up to him and I was like, hey, you work at WCBI, right? And he turns around, he's like, yeah, Chris Latimer, how's it going?
I can see that.
And he gives me a big handshake. And, I tell him that I want to work at the TV station, that I want to work with cameras and, learn how all the things behind the scene works. And he gave me his card. And, that's just kind of how it was. It was a quick conversation. And I don't think that he thought that I was going to call as much as I did, but I kept calling and kept calling. And then eventually they called me back.
Right. So you started out just kind of as a high school intern, right? And so how is it that you ended up getting a paid position?
So once I started as that high school intern, I was working in the sports department. And, the sports guys, they would send me out all the time with one of our photographers at the time, a guy named Chad Ray. And they would send me out with Chad. And eventually they start letting me shoot. And they sent me to a Mississippi State football practice one day, and I'll never forget, I guess the video I shot was so good, they were like, okay, you have an eye for videography. And so a few, maybe 3 months after I started as an intern, Chris Latimer called me, and he told me that there was a position open in production that had just come open, and it was an opportunity for me to get paid and not work for free. And I was like, okay. And then a few weeks later, Derek Rogers hired me to work in production.
Who's now our general manager.
Who's now our general manager, yes. And he hired me to work in production.
Wow.
And I was running the teleprompter, sitting right over there, running the teleprompter for the 6 and 10 o'clock news.
That's
and
amazing.
Eventually worked my way up.
So getting on the air here, one of the really special things I always say that I'm being able to work in a place that I love and I get to do what I love, where I love. And it's unique to be able to do that in front of people who've watched you grow up. So I'm guessing for you, you had a proud mama and a grandmama when you appeared on that television set the first night.
I did. And, my family, it's so weird. Even though I haven't been here for so long, they've still been keeping up with me. And my brother, he thought I was still doing sports because he's on
TV.
Yeah, he's on TV, so he's like, I must be still doing sports. But my family, they were extremely happy to see me on the news at first, especially, considering, I don't know how much you know about this, considering the problems that I had speaking when I was younger, speaking and talking with my speech impediment and things like that. So when I had an opportunity to have a job at WCBI, working on TV.
Doing the thing that had given you so many obstacles.
Exactly, doing the thing.
That's
and now I say, and when I talk to younger students, especially those who may have problems speaking in front of the camera, I always say, at one point in my life, I you could barely understand what I was saying, and now I get paid to talk on television. So there is something that you can work on. You can always work on your voice to make your voice a little stronger.
That is quite a testimony.
And I'm
really.
glad I was able to do that.
What is the reaction that you get from people, especially in those early days of starting at WCBI? I know one of the things that I love is, I will be, at a coffee shop or at the grocery store, and to run into my middle school teacher, who remembers me sitting in her 6th grade class. To me, that's just one of the very best feelings, is to, all of these people who've been very forgiving, because we were kind of rough around the edges when we started. Don't you remember those days? It's like, oh my God, these people are giving me a job on TV. But you also knew that you were in an environment where people were going to nurture you, and the people that were watching were rooting for you. So that helped, didn't it?
It did. As a matter of fact, one of my elementary school teachers, Miss Sims, a few years ago sent me a handwritten letter and a photo that she had of me from when I was a student at I think it was Brandon Elementary. I was a student at Brandon Elementary, and she had this photo of me, and I remember taking that photo because she hung those photos on the wall after we took them. And when I opened the envelope and I saw that in the note from Miss Sims, who had traveled to the Jackson area for a brief stay and saw me on the news down in Jackson and reached out, and to know that people like Miss Sims who are gonna be here, who saw me grow up, are gonna have an opportunity to see, she's
gonna say, "There's my Marcus."
To see where I am now after the journey, I'm just looking forward to it. And it's interesting about the running into people thing that you just said. I haven't worked at WCBI in nearly 20 years, but since I've been back in the area, I have run into people who have remembered me from when I was here at WCBI the first time. So, it's good to know that I left at least enough of an impact that some folks remember when I was here the first time.
It's going to be all familiar to them, once you start. I have a similar story about the teacher reaching out. So my 5th grade teacher, Miss Miller, sent a card to me. This has been several years ago now, but I had been here probably 10 years, and she sent me a handwritten note telling me how proud she was of me. And I remember sitting in her 5th grade class at Sudeth Elementary School in Starkville, and to hear from her, having remembered me and just, congratulating me and telling me she was proud of me, really made me feel good. So it feels like everybody just kind of feels like family.
It does. And even walking back into this building, seeing some of the familiar faces of the people that I worked with when I was here the first time, and just it's like I never left. Just seeing those folks and having those conversations has been great.
The fun thing that's going to be kind of cool about sitting next to you at the desk is that we're rivals.
Yes.
We really are rivals, because I am a Starkville Yellow Jacket and you are a Columbus Falcon.
Yes.
So on Friday nights, it's not going to be friendly.
No, it's not, especially when those teams clash. As I was saying, my last game I ever played in high school football was a loss to Starkville in the playoffs. I never forget the last play. I made the tackle, got up, and walked off the field because the clock hit 0, and I walked off, eyes bawling, my last game, and I'm like, oh, we lost to Starkville. Second time that year we lost to Starkville.
See, I can remember growing up, and the Starkville-Columbus game was a big one. Also, the Starkville-West Point game and the Columbus-West Point game. Those are, the Golden Triangle teams, and so it'll be fun this fall on Friday nights.
It will be. It used to be standing room only at those games, and it just made me remember. I just thought about this. So the Friday before we played Starkville, so we had played a game on Friday, then we all went to the Mississippi State football game later. And it was one of those FCA games where Columbus High students were there, Starkville students were there, and we were standing behind the Mississippi State bench jawing at each other. and the state players started looking at us like, what are they doing? And so but Starkville got the last laugh because they beat us in the playoff game.
Oh, wow, that's fun. Those, and I think that rivalry still kind of exists. We still look forward to that, so it'll be
Even
fun.
though you guys get the better end of it more often than not.
Yeah. I think most things are cyclical, so at some point it's going to come back and the Falcons are going to be on top again. And let me just say, I root for everybody,
Yes.
but the Yellow Jackets, the Yellow Jackets are my team, but I root for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. You got to root for everybody around here because, we're all family, the Golden Triangle.
Another thing that I sort of think about when I think about working, here and things that are near and dear to heart the faith community that embraces us here in this area. We are in a place where, you grew up in church, I grew up in church, and that's going to be another source of pride, I think, for people is, little Marcus was in my Sunday school class, or maybe your pastor, I baptized Marcus. I get some of those same reactions too.
Yeah, and the fact that I'm from a small church, my church, Turner Chapel, which is not too far from here at the station, we have a congregation, maybe 30 people on a Sunday, if we're lucky. So we have a small church, and the church is honestly where I was able to get my voice, even though I wasn't that well as far as like my speaking voice. Every Sunday I was going up and I was either doing the prayer, or I was doing the announcements, or I was doing not the altar call, but taking up the money. And so I was very active in the church. And, I think, and my daughter has been very active as well. And that's one of the things that's been important, because I know just how much my mother putting me out there in front of the church folks and having me talk about the announcements.
Listen, the church crowd can be rough. So it is a confidence builder. It is an humbling experience. It's all those things. So, you grow up and you do an Easter speech on Sundays,
yes,
right?
You do, yes.
Okay. You get to do the Sunday school report for your class. Yep. You get to go to vacation Bible school where you might have to present, whatever has been done that night. So church, truly instrumental in helping me to gain confidence to talk in front of people, again, for people to be forgiving, but also to be honest. So, it's a great environment to be in.
It is, because, you can go to church and you can do the announcement, and then if you mess up, they're just going to say, take your time.
Take time, baby. Take your time, baby. That's exactly right. That still happens to me now. I get up and I'll have a brain freeze and they go, take your time, baby, take your time. So before we walked out here, you were over on the big wall in the newsroom, and you pulled out this ancient thing called a tape.
Beta tape, yes.
We're not even we don't use tapes at all anymore.
And it's amazing how much the field of journalism has changed. Just being a professor at State, also just talking to my students about just how much things have changed. I walk in and there's, like you said, a wall lined with big beta tape. I pull one off, I see my handwriting on it, and I'm like, that's about 20 years old. And these tapes, I have friends in Memphis, and I was telling them about beta tapes, and they're like younger, like 30-year-olds.
Sure.
Had no idea what a beta tape was.
And so going in an edit bay and editing your video on this tape, those days are no more.
Those days are no more.
So when you think about how things have evolved, they've definitely gotten easier.
Yes.
For sure, it's made things much more efficient for us. But those are good memories, though.
They are good memories. And, those are the memories, honestly, the things that really helped me advance in my career. Because I just go back to when I was working here shooting on beta tapes. Upstairs in the mezzanine back then, there was one computer. There was a nonlinear editor. And I wanted to learn how to use it so bad, because when I came to WCBI, it was about shooting and editing. That's what I wanted to do.
But you started some nonlinear when you were a student at Mississippi State, right?
Yes, I started doing some nonlinear editing there. That was the first time I was introduced to it. It was at school. And then the mezzanine here, there was a program, Avid or something like that. And I went up there, and you would have to insert the video in real time. So it would take a long time to insert the video, then go back and edit it. But it really helped me get my first taste of nonlinear editing, and that really helped me in my career, because now there is no more tape-to-tape editing.
There is none.
And there are some people in this business who have been in the business for so long, they cannot use the new technology because they just never learn how to go from tape to tape to nonlinear editing. And the fact that, thankfully, I was in that era where it was starting to happen when I was here, and I was on the forefront of it. I get the best of both worlds. I understand how tape to tape works, and I understand how the nonlinear side of things work.
Another thing I feel like that's changed in real time for us, and I think we're probably still adjusting to it, is the existence of social media as a part of our job. Having to post things on social media, having to respond to people on social media, having people have that platform to sort of say whatever they want to say to us. That adjustment has been a little bit tricky, wouldn't you say?
It has been tricky. And it's tricky because you have to really make sure that what you're putting on social media is something that you want the world out there to see, and whether that's you, me, or anyone else, for that matter. And thankfully, when social media started coming out, I had a Facebook page. I remember, as a matter of fact, I remember signing up for my Facebook page at this station.
But see, at that time, Facebook was sort of like a college reunion.
You had to have the @MST,
right.
the @edu.
And see, I was a little bit older. I'm a little bit older than you, just a little. But I do remember the younger people in the newsroom having Facebook accounts, and I'm like, what is this Facebook thing? And it was you all staying connected with your college classmates.
Yes, it was.
And so now we're at a point, I think all the old folks, we've moved the young people off of Facebook. They've gone to TikTok and Instagram. But do you feel like you have to have social media because of your job, I should say, because of our career? Do you think it's necessary for you to have it?
I do. I believe that especially the way that the industry has changed, I think that it is important for viewers to be able to see what we're like outside of the television station. Because one thing that I have noticed or that I learned just from working in so many newsrooms is that when you're on air you have to be a certain way. However, we all have personalities when we're not on television.
Sure, yeah.
And so the viewers, sometimes they like to see those personalities. And one thing that I really enjoyed doing was going live on Facebook, and sometimes I'll be streaming while I'm doing the news and during the commercial breaks.
We should try that. We
should
do it.
Yeah.
And people, for whatever reason, people are attracted to live on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, and you have people that are piping in and they're talking back and forth. I think it's the being able to see kind of a sneak peek behind the scenes, I think is what is intriguing for people.
It really is, because folks love to be able to, ask those questions, and then like during a package or during a commercial, you can respond, or you can just say hi, to whoever's that just that little bit of interaction, I believe just really helps bring the viewers in, because they feel like they know you even more on a personal level than they do just from watching the news.
I'll say when I started my professional page, the purpose of me to doing it was to share news content, share content that we're doing here, maybe from some of our, as a CBS affiliate, some of their content. But the thing that I find is that people don't care about the news content that I post on my page. I can post about this really tragic thing that happened, and I may get, 20 impressions. But if I put what I had for dinner, a picture of what I had for dinner, then, everybody is commenting and everybody is responding to it. So I think you're probably right. It's just them wanting to see the other side, the human side of us, and not just that person that is, giving them the good or bad news of the day. So
no, you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I did kind of as an experiment for myself a few years ago, I stopped, what I did was I would post a news story and I would give it a day. Okay, see how many likes it gets. And then I post just a regular picture of me. And people, more interactions on the photos of you, or like you were saying, the photos of anything else, but like the news stories. But what it does is, I think that now that they have that personal side, they're going to want to come look at your page, or if if they know you're going to be on the news that night, they're going to want to go watch, because maybe there is something that connects them to you that they saw on your page. So for me, hopefully it just brings everybody in to be more of the
ultimately
family.
We want them to turn on and watch us at night.
Exactly.
Don't just watch us on Facebook.
Exactly.
Another really cool thing we have in common is that we both are teachers. So we both are around college students every day, teaching broadcasting and in the communication department. Talk about the balance of doing that. I mean, it's going to be kind of new to you back in television and teaching, but I think for me, they teach me, I think, as much as I teach them about what they're going through, and it helps me to kind of give them a realistic view of what they're moving into when they get into the broadcasting world. But they also teach me a lot about how to respond to, because we have a young group in our newsroom, so it gives me a better understanding maybe of what is going through their minds, their experiences, and how they respond to things.
True, and having the ability just to talk to young people who are young and hungry and energetic about this business, and to know that you can instill something in them that can help them, throughout my career, whenever I've worked with somebody who was new to the business, whenever they moved up, to me it's like a a badge of honor for me because I had something to do, even if it was something very small, with helping that person get to the next level. And that's the way I look at teaching at Mississippi State. It's helping the students helping the students understand what journalism is.
And what it's not.
And what it is and what it's not,
not.
yes. And helping them try to understand what the business is going to be like going into it.
They all think it's glamorous, don't they?
They do.
They think that, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on TV, I'm going to wear makeup and have nice outfits on, but there is so much that goes on between the time you get to work in the morning and you get that minute and a half on TV at night.
It really
There's
is.
a lot of dragging heavy equipment all by yourself, and they don't know that.
Yes. Yeah, going out there sometimes shooting in the rain, shooting in the snow.
By yourself,
By yourself,
So when I
exactly.
started here at WCBI, I had a photographer everywhere I've gone. So if I went to shoot a story, a photographer was assigned to go with me. So obviously, we have what's called, it's MMJ, everybody, multimedia journalists. So all new reporters now do everything by themselves. I still, to this day, do not know how to operate a camera.
Look at you.
And that's probably a little bit purposeful. So
I understand
every now and then when I go out to shoot a story now that, we've got to have a photographer, one of these guys that are in here right now will go out with me. But giving them that realistic view, though, that this is not glamorous, but if you have a hunger to tell stories, if you like, days that are not going to be the same you do the same thing every day, but it's different topics, it's different subject matters. And if you care about giving a voice to people who otherwise would not, then this is the job for you. If you only want to be on TV, you might want to rethink it. And that's the first thing I asked the first day of class for my smaller class is, how many of you in here want to have a job on TV? Why did you take this class? And they, inevitably at least 3 people are going to say, I want to be an influencer.
Yeah.
What is an influencer, by the way?
I would think that you're an influencer, but
just by nature of the job.
Just by nature of the job. But I mean, with with cell phones and small DSLR cameras, everybody who has a camera feel like they can be an influencer.
Well, and it is true. I mean, I told my class, as a matter of fact, this morning, we were talking about internet and social media and how all of it has changed our lives. And I said, every single person in here is a journalist to some degree. You are a journalist, you are a storyteller because you have a phone.
Yes.
And if your phone can record and you can speak into a microphone and you can show people something that they otherwise would not see, then you're a journalist if you tell a story. Now, are you doing it responsibly? Are you telling stories that need to be told? But, that is this digital world that we live in has made everybody a citizen journalist, as we like to say.
It has, and just last week or a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to my students about just that, and they were complaining about the cameras that they have to use currently that are still much smaller and lighter than the cameras that I had to use back in the day.
The big joker that was on your shoulder?
Exactly. Yeah. And so when I told them, I was like, you all are in this era where you're, in maybe 10 years, the big cameras will no longer be used probably. And you're in the middle of that era where you're transitioning. So a lot of you can go out and shoot stories. We had several students who won awards recently who shot their entire stories on a cell phone. But, obviously if you have a camera, you know how to use it, you can get some better shots. But just the fact that a lot of TV stations are going to using, allowing their photographers and reporters to use cell phones and things like that. So they're in this era where things are switching over. So maybe in the next 10 years, all reporters will be using cameras or cell phones and things like that.
Well, just so you know, you'll be driving in, because you live in Starkville just like I do. So you're going to be driving in one day and something will be going on in Starkville and you may not have a camera. And so we're going to go, Marcus, pull out your phone and get some video and bring it in with you. It has happened to me, many times.
I almost did that today. I was driving to Columbus and I saw on Facebook, it said there was a SWAT team on 20th Street in Columbus. And I went to 20th Street just to see. I didn't see anything.
You didn't shoot any video? The executive producer is sitting right over there.
Well, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. Had I saw something, I would have gotten some video. But it's when you're out and you see a story, especially if you've been doing this for a long time, you can be out there and you can see something going on and that's a news story, and just knowing the right questions to ask to make it a story.
And that's what you just taught a whole class right there, because that's journalism.
Yes.
Okay, I see a story, I know the questions that need to be asked, and I know how to tell this so that people are going to be interested in it. That's journalism.
That's it.
It's not just sitting in front of a camera.
No, and so many people think that it is, but you will be humbled in this business quickly if you think that the only thing you have to do is sit in front of a camera and look pretty. It just doesn't work that way.
And some days are hard days, because every story, most of the stories that we cover that are going to be, early on in our newscast are going to be hard stories, sad stories, tragic stories. How do you create the balance that you need, I guess, to handle all of that? Because it can take an emotional toll on you after a while.
It took a while because remember, I started off as a sports guy.
So everything was happy.
Everything was happy. And when I really made the switch over to news, I was working in Memphis, which is,
nothing was happy. And we love Memphis, but there's a lot of crime.
A lot of crime. And so when I first started doing news, I took it home with me. It was hard. And it took some time, but I had to figure out ways how to just not bring work home with me. And so you get to a point when you've been doing this for a while where regardless of the situation, the story, how happy it is, how tragic it is, you have to realize that it is a story. It is your job to tell this story. And when you're done, you have to leave it there, because if you take it home with you, it can weigh on you. And it did for a while. And luckily, I'm through that now. But and that's one of the lessons I'm teaching my students now. I'm giving them hard news stories now, even if I'm pulling affidavits for them to read and turn into stories, because when you get out there in the real world, you're going to have to tell stories like this. And so it's better to understand how to tell them now. And
also to read the language, to be able to
read the language,
actually tell it to people. There are a lot of stories to tell in Columbus, Starkville, West Point, and we have a very large viewing area. One thing I love is when people call and email us to tell us things that are happening. So I really do feel the pull, and I feel really it's a responsibility to tell these amazing stories that are in the Golden Triangle and North Mississippi, West Alabama, and knowing some of them are going to be hard stories to tell, but we're in a position where we can give someone a voice that may otherwise not have it.
And that's true. One thing that is important to me, especially when it's a story that's tragic, whenever because I've had to unfortunately interview many families after something tragic happened. And one thing that I always make sure to do is ask the family about the person that it happened to, because that person had a story, had a life, and it's not just about the thing that happened to that particular person.
That's exactly right.
And so to me, it is important that if I'm going to have to walk into a situation where a family is grieving and talk to a family member, I want that family member to tell me something good about their loved one, so I can put that in the story, so that they know when they watch the news that night that the story isn't just about my loved one who may have lost their life. The story is about this was a person and this thing happened to them.
I also love finding stories in kind of unexpected places, getting involved in different community service or, civic clubs. You can find lots of different nuggets and things maybe that you didn't know were going on in our area. And those are stories also that need to be told. They're not tragic stories, they may not be stories that would, have nationwide appeal, but they are important to the people who live in our communities. So I really love when I find those little surprise stories. We had a lady that called, or I saw her story on Facebook, and her family had a situation where there was carbon monoxide poisoning, and she thought, well, it was nothing, and they called the fire department anyway. And as it turned out, there were high levels of carbon monoxide poisoning. And this was an opportunity for us to not only tell her story, but to raise awareness to people about this really important thing that you hear, safety advocates talk about all the time. You got to have a carbon monoxide detector. This sort of puts a face on it. You got to do it.
It does, and that's one of the great things about working in this market and in an area like Columbus and the Golden Triangle. You can tell those stories because in larger cities, you may not be able to tell that story because there's so much other news going on, or depending on the station you work at, they just want the hard hitting stuff that you may not be able to tell those stories. But here, you can tell those stories that matter to a lot more people, and not just the people who are looking for crime. Those stories that somebody may not have had a carbon monoxide detector in their home and decided, I'm going to go and get one because I saw this story.
And the people in our communities appreciate when we tell their stories, and they get really mad at us when we don't. So we have to be careful with that. Let's talk a little bit about family, because the other thing you and I have in common is that we have daughters.
Yes.
And we have daughters who are in two different places in life. So I need some advice. You might have to hold my hand through some of this. So your daughter is in college.
Yeah, she is.
My daughter is just starting teenage life. She's 14 years old. So what do I have to look forward to?
Ooh, maybe we'll talk some more off camera, but
oh my gosh, I'm scared now.
But I'll say this: one thing that I told my daughter early on, especially when she got into the teenage years, into the middle school years, when school started to get a little harder and friendships started to wane a little bit. Friends you thought were friends in elementary, you get to middle school.
Because you hit that there's a point you hit where things start, the paths start to diverge a little bit.
Yes, and what I tried to prepare her for that. I was like, hey, all your friends in elementary, they may not all be your friends, by the time you get to high school. So I just tried to prepare her as much as I could for what was to come when it came to everything, but also just to have that open communication with her. Kyla understands that she can talk to me about anything. I mean,
she does.
When I say anything, she talks to me about any and everything. She called me this morning talking about something that happened with one of her professors. She'll call me. She has a boyfriend now, so she'll call me.
Oh boy.
She'll call me with relationship advice. And so, the fact that I just made sure I had that open communication with her, so that she would feel free to tell me anything, and to know that if she did that, if she told me, I wasn't going to come down too hard on her, because obviously if it was something bad that she felt like she needed to tell me, she already knew.
And so you feel like that she has enough trust in you that if something bad really did happen, or she really made a bad mistake, and kids do make mistakes, you think that she could come, you have the relationship that you think she'd come to you?
Oh, I'll be her first call. No doubt. And I'm happy to have that relationship with her.
Yeah.
And just being on campus with her now sometimes. I mean, she comes over to the office. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
I was working here at WCBI when she was born. I have a photo of me holding her in front of the green screen when she was about 6 months old. So, and you remember, her coming up here for Market Street festivals and things like that.
Yeah,
so,
I do. And now she's in college, so I'm really old now.
Well,
and so are you.
Yeah, so, exactly. So, but for you, I would just say the teenage years are great. They can be trying, but the open communication for me was the saving grace, because I never felt that she was going to do something that I wouldn't know about if I needed to know about. And just knowing that she felt comfortable enough with me to talk to me about anything, that's just a really big blessing.
Well, I will say, I think Emily has a great deal of trust in me, and I think more than anything, she does not want to disappoint me. She wants to she is just a compliant person in general, but when it comes to her mother and her father, she really wants to make sure she's making us proud. So I always feel comfortable that she's going to make fairly good decisions. I know she's going to make some mistakes along the way, but I do hope that she puts the kind of trust in me that Kyla has in you, where she can feel comfortable enough that if something has happened, she can come and tell her mama about it. And that's the scary part, about being a parent, and that whole letting go thing. Ugh.
Yeah.
So tell me about the first date. How did that go? I mean, she came to you and said, this guy wants to take me out.
So, she came to me and told me about him before they started dating. She kind of started dropping the little tea leaves about this big, tall guy that she thought was scary. Yeah, thought he was scary. And she just started dropping those tea leaves along the way. And then one day I was like, are you talking about blah? And she was like, yeah. And then the next week she called me and she said, can you come to the union so you can meet him? So I met him early on when they started to like each other, because she wanted to make sure that I had that she had my approval.
I love that.
For the relationship, which she really didn't have to, but the fact that she did, that I was appreciative of. So, yeah, so she's, the first date, she's, the first month anniversary was a thing. Young couples.
So you're saying Kyla is a daddy's girl?
Definitely daddy's girl.
Okay, well, that's great. I love that.
Definitely. And another thing, I want to get a little shiny up there.
It's just fine.
Another thing that I
think the last time he was here, he had hair. So yeah,
I did.
He made a real conscious decision here.
The one thing I made sure to let Kyla know, though, just best effort. When it came to grades in school, give me your best effort, and I can't get mad at you. If you are not a math whiz, which thankfully she is because her dad isn't, and you give me
She's really smart, though.
She's aerospace engineering major, yeah. But if you give me your best effort, and if it's a C, but it's your best effort and the best you can do, I'm not going to get upset at you as long as you gave your best effort.
And you know when it's the best effort, when you're just out there clowning around.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're going to be sitting next to me. We're going to have some fun. We're going to rib each other on Friday nights, and we're going to tell some good stories.
Glad to be back, and hopefully one day my son can run around here.
How old is your son?
He's 4.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he's 4. He'll be 5.
We love babies in this building,
great.
so please bring him to meet us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So you can run around, and maybe I can take a picture with him in front of the green screen, kind of recreate the photo I had with Kyla. He's a little bigger than she was at that point.
Life full circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Life full circle.
I love it. Great.